It's Throwback Thursday, and we have concepts for you. What should the Chiefs bring back, maybe from the Andy Reid era, and put into this offense in 2023? Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Throwback Day. We're talking Andy Reid's offense. What can they add back to spice things up this year, or maybe make a new wrinkle? We're going to talk a lot about that today. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. That's your team every day on every show and every team across the NFL. So thanks for making us your first listen. Go check out another Locked On show for your next one, because we are here 5 days a week. You everydayers get that. Locos, I know you guys have already heard it, but if you are not one of us already, make sure you get subscribed over on YouTube, where you can like and sub and hit the bell, and over on Spotify, Apple, whatever audio platform you like, because we are here 5 days a week for you. We have a good time. Today is one where we get to theorize about what we would add back into the offense. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, where you can see a great interview we just put up the other day, as well as RGR Football.
And I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner, and this is going to be a fun conversation. There are a lot of different things that Andy Reid has done throughout his career, and specifically more in Kansas City that we haven't seen as much of lately. If you want to reach us, you can text us at 816-357-8781. We are responding, and we're talking to the people that are texting us. So go get signed up for that. Go check it out. When you start getting into this topic, for me, it comes down to, you could go two different directions. Do you take it back to old, 20, 30 years ago and try to bring back things from then? Or are you looking at stuff in the last 5 to 10 years? Me personally, I'm looking at something from the past 5 to 10 years.
Me too. Like, I'm specifically today, I'm going to talk about things that Andy Reid should bring back that he personally has done in the past, mostly from the Kansas City era too. So recent history. We're not talking crazy wishbone, whatever, V formations, none of that. But like, if you just had to pick something we've seen in a Chiefs uniform before since the Reid era began, where would you go?
3 tight end set. And I say that, and I know they still do the 3 tight end set at times, but they don't use it like they did 5 to 6 years ago, when they split out 2 tight ends. They did tight end screens out to two multi tight ends on one side of the field or the other. Using 3 tight ends, this offense uses 2 tight ends a lot, and they're one of the best offenses in the NFL doing it. Putting 3 tight ends on the field takes away from maybe what could be one of your weakest position groups at wide receiver, kind of like we've talked about, and could give you a little bit more strength at the tight end position, because you have guys that you're not going to be able to cover with a linebacker or cover with a safety. There are just going to be some guys, Jody Fortson's one of them. Travis Kelce is one of them. Those types of guys are going to be very hard to be covered by different players on the field, unless they're covered by CBs, and that's even a mismatch there.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I like the concept, because I think it takes athleticism. I think you have varying degrees of athleticism, obviously, with Travis Kelce. But Jody Fortson's a little bit more of a straight line athlete. Noah Gray can do a little bit of both. His change of direction is actually more than he gets credit for. And I think he showed up that his athleticism in terms of leaps and being able to go snag balls showed up a little bit late in last season. So you've got a nice spread versatility of that trio, but you've also got some guys that can add a couple other things. Now, no one's going to call Blake Bell an extreme athlete, but we know that he can do some different things, mostly in the blocking thing. So put him out there in a bunch set and let him lead the way for Travis or someone else. But then there's Matt Bushman that you might be able to do a couple of hybrid deals there as well. In the end, I think the more tight ends, the merrier.
Well, and the thing that I like about it the most, and I'm not going to say that I expect them to run the ball a lot, but when you put 3 tight ends on the field, you were expecting more of a jumbo package and somebody that's going to run the ball more. That doesn't have to be the case with Kansas City. I would even throw a wrinkle in and say maybe you bring in a 6th offensive lineman, have 1 running back, have 3 tight ends on the field and a 6th offensive lineman, and then see what you can do with the defense. Because at that point, they're going to expect run. But if you have the 3 tight ends in Kansas City, like what we have with Jody Fortson and Noah Gray and Travis Kelce, you can pass out of that, and you could probably take advantage of things down the field.
I mean, I don't want to be a safety in that situation, right? There's
Right.
nothing plausible that you can do to really help yourself. And that forces defenses out of their comfort zone. I like that concept quite a bit. The question will be, can you get balance, and how many different things can you do? And I think that's going to be based on availability. We've talked about whether Travis Kelce needs to dial back some of the reps this season, who can take some of those reps over. If they develop a couple of different triple tight end packages, you could see guys leading the way for Noah Gray. You could see Jody Fortson getting loose from a bunch. You can do those cross releases with those guys because they all run routes like they're wide receivers anyway. So I think for me, it'll be the volume of versatility and how often you can get that onto the field. Is there a particular concept you want to see them do that maybe we haven't seen in a while?
I don't think there's a specific concept. I just think that if you use the tight ends that they have, because they have some really young guys that are athletic, and you have a situation where, like I said, most defenses, if they see 3 tight ends on the field, they're going to go more of a heavier run package. And that is going to play in Kansas City's favor because Kansas City doesn't have to run the ball out of that set. And maybe defenses catch on and they start, throwing the guys out there for against the pass. Then you can run the ball on them. Jody Fortson may not be a fantastic blocker. Noah Gray may not be a fantastic blocker, but they can do good enough to get the ball going on the ground and really change things up, regardless of the guys you put out there.
Well, the thing that I really want to see out of that set is that kind of moving screen, that downfield, like 7-8 yard screen where they all leave and you have built-in blockers at that point. That's a quick delivery of a ball, maybe a pump fake. It lets Mahomes get the ball out of his hand and let the big guys roam. I like that concept. Now, for me, I have another passing concept I'd like to see. I know you're all excited that I'm not going to say run the ball. We'll talk about that later in the show. But first, if you were going to bet that I was just going to say run the ball, you missed on this one. And that feeds into today because you can take your swing at betting the MLB right now. And when you do, you can get 10 times your first bet in the bonus bets that come back to you, up to $2,000. That's your eligibility. Just $20 in, and you could land $2,000 back in bonus bets, win or lose. That's the new wrinkle. That's 200% back on everything you put on the money line for the over-under, or do you think that you're going to have the first home run? You can pick any of those things. It's all in the app. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly right to your account. But there's no better place to get in the action than the MLB on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So all you got to do is go down to this address here today. It's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And that's where you can sign up for your $2,000 bonus bets offer right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon. At FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the MLB, the NBA, and the NFL. So where I want to go is I like a little of the concepts, but I really want to make defensive coordinators pay. If you're going to play deep zones, if you're going to leave 3 and 4 high, especially if you're getting cover 4, I want to see my big theme this year is stacked formations, because I do think you can get Sky and Kadarius in some combinations that can help them both succeed in terms of separation and exploiting the defense if you're going to get those drop 7, drop 8 kind of looks. So what I want to see on the other side is another combination. Maybe it's with Kelce, maybe it's not. But I do want to see where you have enough speed to stress the defense deep, but not in a straight line. I want to go back to those kind of mirroring, overreaching deep overs where you get maybe an MVS at 30 or 35 yards, but you have another like mirror pattern underneath it that maybe lags a little bit, so you can buy yourself a little bit of space in the middle of the room as he takes away both deep safeties. Maybe it's with Sky, could be even Travis, but I certainly like it for Kadarius and Rashee Rice. And in particular, I think Richie James is going to have a good time doing that. He's run a lot of routes out of the slot, and I think that's a nice pairing for him. But that's a way that concept then takes what the defense has been giving them a lot of lately and turns it on its head so that you open up the underneath part.
Well, and that's doing one of the things that Andy Reid is best at, is creating those stack combinations and creating different patterns to go out of that and different plays and different designs. That's one of the things he is very good at, is just creative play calling in general, but taking concepts that have been there for years and rearranging them to fit what he needs on his offense now. I wonder if that's something that he looks at and says, okay, they want to play us high. Here's how we're going to attack it, because that's something that they have seen over and over and over again with players, with all the defenders dropping into coverage to try to take away Patrick Mahomes and his ability to get the ball down the field and his ability to keep plays open so he can get the ball wherever he wants to on the field.
Yeah, I agree with you. And here's the thing is it gives you, I think it brings back a little bit of opportunity into the offense for when you get a bust. When you force the defense into a decision that they make a mistake on and you get a free roamer, now it's at 30 or 35 yards, and it's the home run that we've come to be used to in years past. It's not the 12 or 18 yard that then has to turn into a yak play, right? So I think the opportunity is there. But it all hinges for me back on the offensive line because the two new tackles, it would require more time in pocket. And that's, I think, the big question. Are you comfortable with that given two new tackles at this point?
I'm definitely comfortable on the right side. The question mark is going to be the left tackle. And until we actually see him in a game situation and see how he's able to play, that's going to be the big question is the left tackle going to be available and able to do that? You start looking at another scenario. You have a guy like Jet McKinnon who in the backfield could step up and take a guy off the edge and chip and help that way. But you also have a scenario where you could put an extra tight or put a tight end over there and help the tackle if you absolutely need to run those kinds of concepts. You take somebody out of the pattern a little bit, but you can always use them as a dump off, after a couple of seconds if there's not something open downfield. I do think that it's something that they ought to look at because they have the talent to be able to run something like that. They have the different players to run in the different areas and to run different routes and have a lot of different combinations. So I think that could be something that Kansas City would really be benefiting from if they start running and using those types of concepts. And then you start looking at what else it's going to open up. Because in that scenario, you can have all these different route combinations and have one look exactly like a completely different route combination and have the plays look identical from the start, but be completely different. So you could run it once and the defense thinks they know what's coming and do something completely different, which opens up another area on the field.
I particularly agree with you there because I think that feeds back into another concept that we've seen be very successful and got this team a ring, and that's Wasp. You can run that play by running those dual routes where you break one off, and that's really the way that play worked. I don't think you have to have the elite speed that Tyreek Hill has. I think you can do that with Kadarius Toney, and I think as the underneath guy, the inside guy on that combination, there are ways to then just break some ankles and get a lot of yardage out of it. I think it could be big for this offense.
Well, and you start looking at what Kadarius Toney can do. You start looking what MBS can do. MBS has the speed to break things over the top. That's what he was best at in Green Bay. That's something that he has done inconsistently in Kansas City. But if he starts being more consistent, that's an area that they could take advantage of and could really open up this offense in a different way. You talk about Rashee Rice, you talk about Sky Moore, you talk about any of the wide receivers that could be running underneath. Richie James is another one. Those guys are going to have different ways that they're going to run routes. They're going to have different ways they're going to get open, and they're going to stress a defense differently depending on where they're going to be on the field and how they're running the routes and really the route combinations that you're talking about. So opening it up, doing these deep crosses really helps. I don't know what the right word would be, confuse the defense as to what could be coming because you can do a deep cross one route. Like I said, you can do a deep cross one play in the first quarter, come back and do a similar and maybe have it be a deep in instead of a cross, just have it be like a deep hitch.
Yeah, it could easily work that way. It sets them up again to go back and show something that's familiar to a defense that they think they've seen before and come out with something completely different. I think that's the way that you got to go. But if you can do that, it certainly helps you put up points and keep everybody on their toes. But there are other ways to do that. You can throw out some plays that harken back to when things got crazy. We're going to talk about our favorite crazy plays here coming up next. So when we get into it, there's one that stands out to me. I don't know if you have the same one in mind, but what's your favorite crazy play that we've seen in the last 8 to 10 seasons that you'd want to see come back this season?
I don't know how you could say anything other than Don Terry Poe throwing the touchdown pass. I mean, there are so many fun plays. And don't get me wrong, I like Snow Globe. I like but that's really more of just a huddle thing and really throwing off the defense, trying to not give them an idea of where people are going to go. That's not really the same type of thing. Hungry, you start looking at Terry Poe throwing a touchdown pass to Demetrius Harris. That's a completely different type of play that you wouldn't expect. And quite frankly, I mean, I'm not going to call Chris Jones on Terry Poe, but it would not shock me for Andy Reid to call something for Chris Jones.
Yeah. I wonder if that's part of the current negotiation. That would be my big question right now. It's like, hey, listen, I'm going to need a couple of offensive plays to make this contract work. I'm not going to
2 offensive plays a year. Yeah,
right. I'm not going to argue with you. That would probably be my favorite play to bring back as well. And we all know that Chris feels that he can throw the ball. It's got to be right, and it's got to be the right opponent who is going to, quite honestly, not be prepared to defend that kind of thing. But we've seen offensive linemen catch that pass. We've seen, 17th tight ends get in the game and catch that. I would love personally to see Chris Jones throw to Lucas Niang standing in the back of the end zone. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, that's pretty specific. I will say this, though. We're talking about crazy plays we'd like to see brought back. I personally would love for them to take any plays that have Mahomes as a wide receiver out of the playbook, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's fair. As well as, I think we're all comfortable scrapping anything where Travis has to actually throw the ball. Let's avoid that as well.
I don't know that I would say that, because that actually takes away, when they bring him in as a wildcat type person, that takes away his ability to really, if he's always going to be running it, the defense knows he's always going to be running it. He's going to have to throw again at some point. I think that it's just going to be a reality if they're going to go back to that type of formation.
I do want to go back to another concept. I can't remember what the play was called, but I also want to see like an 8 lineman set with some guys split out and just throw that 2-yard 2-point conversion tunnel screen with 2 blockers out there. And I want 1,000 pounds of linemen barreling into that end zone. That's what I'd like to see.
No, that would be a lot of fun. I mean, you start looking at, a guy like Nick Allegretti, you look at, Darren Kennard, you look at all those guys that could possibly be that guy, Wanya Morris, Lucas Niang, who's going to be active. That game is really going to depend on who's going to have a chance at catching that ball, but that'd be a lot of fun to see. I mean, getting those linemen a chance to score a touchdown and really, I'd like to see those types of plays early in the season. And I say that because you start to, I'm sure they have enough crazy plays or trick plays that it's not going to matter if they use 3 or 4 early in the season. But if you use 3 or 4 trick plays in the first 5 or 6 games, it really starts to make defenses wonder what you are going to throw at them. And then you get into a scenario where they're worried about this play or this play or this play, and maybe you get something even easier.
Yeah, you never know what's coming. It keeps them on their toes, and I do like that concept as well. We'd like to know what your favorite is. Hit us in the YouTube comments. Is there something else you'd like to see them bring back? Is it the little pop pass? Have you had enough, by the way, of the underhand scoop inside to X fullback tight end, whoever it happens to be? Has that been overdone? What would you want to see them make that a wrinkle out of? We'd like your input on the YouTube comments in particular.
What about the Rose Bowl parade? We haven't seen that since the Super Bowl.
I mean, you combine that with the ring around the rosy, like pre-huddle maneuver, like it's Dance Party USA out there.
Yeah, could be a lot of fun. And I think that we're going to see Andy Reid really get into some different creative things this season, because when you start looking at what he's going to have to adjust to, you look at how defenses adjusted to Kansas City last year. Yeah, they still won a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that their offense wasn't good, but they had to make adjustments throughout the season. What's he going to do? What's he going to throw out there that's going to make defenses make adjustments? And, he's going to have to readjust during the season this year. That's something that I have always loved about Reid, is it always comes out being something that maybe you didn't expect. Maybe you weren't expecting this type of play, but it shows up and you're like, okay, that's Andy Reid's new wrinkle.
I'm just going to say it this way. Hungry Pig was to the right. I want a new name, and I want it to the left. Let's just keep everybody on their toes, okay? That's what I'm looking for. We'd like to know your opinion. Hit us at the text line at 816-357-8781 and get into the action. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Tomorrow, we're taking Friday to a new level about how we're personally going to use Kansas City Chiefs in our upcoming seasons. Don't miss tomorrow. We are here 5 days a week. Go check out another Locked On show. Maybe it's the fantasy one. Maybe it's the draft one. I don't know. Or maybe it's an AFC West rival. Go check them out today. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.